Why, hello, lovelies. I got a new hoodie coming, so don't everybody worry. It's my last one over there. I see it hanging on the wall like my little bat cave. But it's made out of the fox leather, and I'm just trying to get better materials. Taking that plastic shit off my head was like taking, it's like my intuition had a condom on it, and now it doesn't. Anyway, uh, yeah, I wanted to talk a moment, I guess, about the sexual bread and circus. I do appreciate people saving kids and underagers and, from non consenting things, especially that. If we just, could agree on that one. Because there's all this. People going around like Kanye West's daughter, and she's 13 and she's hanging around a bunch of old creepy dudes. And I'm not saying you should do that, but I'm just saying that it's all okay with them. So why are you wasting resources and time, even fucking, nothing's going to come of that. You're not going to change Hollywood, which is pedowood. You should be self-aware of that. You shouldn't have your children going there if you don't want them participating in this weird shit in one way or another. I mean, they're going to get roofie raped or something or molested, or they're going to partake. Right? So you're just self-aware. You're not going to change it. All right, you're not going to change all the politicians and the cops and all the security people that they got. Everybody that whole town like is in on it or just about, right? And so you should just be self-aware of these things. And there's a lot of resource draining with that one guy has the crosses on his glasses. That I feel at times, I feel like people could just be mind controlled and just unaware of it. It happens to me, probably happens to you, and like he's like, oh my god, at the end of the Stephen King's in the book, the children had sex with the children. It's like, okay, you guys get caught up a lot in the sexual bread and circus. They have lots of bread and circuses out there, and you're getting all caught up. Like, I hadn't. I've been intending to do a video on like the worst stuff in Eyes Wide Shut. And what is this? Pardon me. All right, sorry about that. It was just, Anyway, I was going to make a video like the worst stuff that's in it because there's like people that think, they're like, oh my god, did you see? And I was going to say essentially that the lightest thing, if you could call it bad or whatever, because I'm just like, leave it up to the families and the participants, and then that starts to look a little like freedom, even though people don't quite like it. But it's like, well, you're not controlling their shit, and then maybe that will happen to you less because like complaining about Kanye West and his willing daughter and everything, while your family is under covert attack and being poisoned left and right, and your neighborhoods are intentionally being burnt down, maybe you should focus on problems that hit closer to home instead of the sexual bread and circus. So in Eyes Wide Shut, well, there's first of all 26 minutes missing from the fucking film, and I'm going to say that is probably the worst stuff. And you could probably use your imagination and hear stuff about some of these darker cults and everything. Not that cults are bad, but they're not all good either, right? So and then I mean, selling your daughter like at the end of the movie, which is what they implied what happened, is pretty bad. It's debatable, like with the murder, because then that one kind of like sacrificed herself, I guess, for Tom Cruise in the movie. So murder is pretty final. All right. And then comes the rainbow room scene, the two scenes and everything, where the dude had his almost adult playing with some adults. And it's like, well, that looked all consensual and everything, and I don't know if they were selling or whatnot, but it almost seems like it's like family business or family affairs, and like their personal matters and beings. And if you, at least focused on the non-consensual stuff, which there's a ton of, like, yeah, I know it's like there's the consenting stuff, okay, weird and everything, right? But then there's the non-consenting stuff, which I would think is a higher priority in like every single case. So if you're going to complain about things, there was some cops recently this year, I think, because they're not all in on it, but they could seem like they're all in on it. Anyway, and they saved like 37 children and arrested seven, and good for them. I mean, that was, it wasn't people crying, oh my God, Kanye West and his willing daughter and their whole willing family having their young underager hang around a bunch of dudes that probably fuck underagers. Like why even waste energy on that? Right? So, and that's just kind of where I stand on this stuff, and then I'm like, well, just leave it up to the families. Doesn't that simplify a lot of problems? And people are like, but that's part of the fucking trick is getting you guys all divided and fighting amongst ourselves. Like I don't weaponize the trans stuff. I'm not into the weaponizing of trans, but the trans people exist, and I'm not going to like hate on them, just for like existing. A lot of them are mind controlled and totally manipulated into it. I mean, with chemicals and poisons and social manipulation. I mean, it runs deep. It runs deep. And anyway, so and I'm just not going to hit on all those people. I'm not into the weaponizing it at all. And in fact, if we just put, this is the penis bathroom and this is the vagina bathroom or vagina, you know, it'll just simplify things more because they have just like weaponized, people, respecting them and their wishes of what to be called. And then now this definition of woman has been perverted, and then they're just like using that to just, and it's like, well, fuck, just say this is the one for penises, this is the one for vaginas, and the only loophole is to like straight up get a sex change, right? And no, you shouldn't be sex changing like your children. All right, I saw this dude, and like his kid wasn't even like hit puberty yet, and he's like, I'm getting a sex change for my son, and it's like, and there was a commenter on the video, and they were like, yeah, like that's really fucked up, and yes, it is really fucked up, and but they also said, why don't you get a sex change, like, and it's like, I know, right, like, parents, they have a right to, kind of make decisions for their children, but, they take it to the extreme and way too far, right? And I think that's like way worse because they're not even conscious yet. They're not like your almost adults. Almost adults are different. I'm a little lighter on the endophilia stuff, and that's just what it is. I find it very strange and everything to like the children, the actual children stuff. And yeah, so anyway, and this is coming from somebody that where I get like roofie raped by children and underagers very likely into my adulthood, because I have some roofie recalls of this happening to me at this Catholic school. And I'm sure that hasn't changed. And then they put me in weird situations after roofie diddling me or molesting me or raping me, whatever terminology you want to use, with underagers. And then they'll put me in a situation where I'm like babysitting, and then they'll have their child, their female child, like feel themselves, let them touch my special spots and like repeat that. And then they'll be like, feeling their crotch, feeling their butthole, feeling their breasts, and just going all over. Like it was the weirdest night of babysitting and one of the first nights of babysitting I ever had. And it was like, okay, no, like, are all children like this? So, and not everyone's trying to be malicious about it, because like I am involved in the occult myself, but I'm not like an active participant member. I am one of their incarnations, and I've had other people like the Jesuits and everything, and Catholics fucking sabotaging me. I've had others being nice to me. It could be just like a mind fuck, just to like get me to think that this other side and is good, when they were really like two facing and doing it to me the whole time. Right, as simple as things can be at times, things can be complicated just as much. So, and so, yeah, I've had some weird offers. I highly suspect people bringing their, almost adults around me, and everything, and doing like a wink and a nod, and I don't think everyone's trying to be malicious about it, but it's just okay, yeah, I do appreciate everybody trying to blackmail, extort, or entrap me, or the very few that are like we're just trying to get a child to God and everything, because there's certain bloodlines that are like stalked and everything. So, and that happens to be mine. And then they're just trying to be nice and breed, and they're like, and no, and those are the least malicious people, I would have to say, out of this whole group. So I just, I'm like, keep it above 18. Thank you very much. If you want any consideration, me, because I'm an honest person, and I consider stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. I'm in like a Waco, Texas situation, and people are trying to get my bloodline and blah 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 blah. It has like nothing to do with me. It's just the bloodline specifically. So they could hate me and still want my bloodline. Is basically what I'm saying. There, right? But anyway, they don't all hate me and everything, and I find that stuff cute, and I just find it cute because I'm not going to be like so angry and everything about it, because I don't want to broadcast all that hatred and everything. So, uh, and then I'm like, yeah, and then, well, as long as you're not in a position of power, because it was weird when I went to school and there was a teacher fucking a student and everything, and then it's like, okay, well, now you're playing favorites and everything, and you shouldn't really be doing that if you're going to be assuming that position of power. But anyway, people like to be like really weird and fucked up, and I'm like, okay, well, just keep it 18 and up. I would prefer someone closer to my age if I'm going to like date them and everything. If I would give considerations to breeding. If people want to raise a child and not like hold it against me, I would consider that, just because I'm like weird and everything, I guess. Right? I do often, and I admit it. I play with dildos, and because people would roofie me, shove things in my ass when I was going to Catholic school. Only till third grade, though. So I mean, right? And yeah, so now I do these things as an adult, and I have a feel. I mean, I've been through many MK Ultras and mind controls, and trying to make me a sexual slave is one of them. And so I respond in a way where I handle a lot of things good, but they're like, well, your one weakness, Chris, is your fucking, you sexually drain yourself, and you play with dildos, and you bring yourself to a low vibration. And I get all that, and I admit it, yeah, but given the decision to be with people sexually or an inanimate object, I'm going to say the inanimate object is just slightly safer, just for the spiritual and magical reasons. If I sleep with somebody, I get kind of attached to them. Not that you can never get detached from them, but you could get like attached to them. They could attach entities to you. There's all this spiritual stuff that's going on. They could have bad intention for you, while pretending to be like that stuff in the porns, which is super annoying. I've been with a few women like that, and it's like, so like, what the hell are you doing? Just be yourself. Don't. And it's like an act and everything, because of course I get spied on for life, right? So there's like some dark web shit that goes on, like with people observing my life and everything, right? And I'm just like self-aware of it and whatnot. So anyway, um, and yeah, and I look at the weird consenting stuff as like, okay, whatever. Let's move on to the non-consenting stuff. All right, just so you got a lot of problems here, you got a lot of made-up problems and whatnot, and so I try to cut the fat, where I can, just so I could be able to function and focus on things, that are hit closer to home. Like there ain't nothing I could do about Kanye West and his daughter. There's nothing that town or possibly state is going to do. The whole, focus on other stuff. Focus on other stuff, right? And I do appreciate people trying to abuse me into things. I'm okay. I've been struggling with going to a sex party for many decades, ever since I was a late teen, young adult. Um, and I still have that struggle like 2.5 decades later. And I really, I think I'm coming to the conclusion, even though I wrestle with it from time to time, because I give considerations, just, because I think too much. And I mean, there were people that roofie possessed me and shit, cast magic on me to keep like love for me, and like I didn't even believe in that shit until like a couple years ago. And you roofie diddle me and everything, and you try to fucking, you have some females, some like way underage females come and try to, lure me or whatever the fuck, or try to draw out the possession in me. Is that's probably what that was. Multiple times, try to make me a mass shooter, try to get me to harm myself and others. Try to covertly murder me multiple times and fail. Murder, sacrifice some members of my family. Try to make me a patsy in some way. I don't owe them shit. I don't owe them jack shit. I'm fine, with myself or that one, amazing lover, which, sadly, the jinn were involved in severing a connection that couldn't happen until I healed myself and whatnot. And yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I talked about a lot in here. I just wanted to, make a guerrilla style video, and I'm making progress on things. I'm trying not to do the dildos as much, but with the sexual draining and everything, it is a big difference from like 2 years ago, where I would just like 4, 5, 6, 7 or more hours a day, where now it's just very quickly. It might be a few times a day, but it's very, very, like 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20 tops. It's much better than where it used to be. So there's that. But also, if I had to be sexual and sexually airing or whatever people want to call it, I think it's just safer to be with like an inanimate object than something that has thoughts and emotions that could send those vibrations out into the universe and have them impact you, right? So I think it was the safest solution. If I had to be sexual, then it was with myself and with, some weird objects that people, whatever, make fun of me for or not make fun of me for, whatever. It's sort of something that they do to many children, and they almost like do make the whole gay community, because they're like, well, if you like anal, then you're gay, and they try doing that on me too, because they cast this bad magic on me to not make it work with their lovely, equal age or similar age vaginas. And then they're like, well, maybe he's gay. And it's like, no, you're casting like literal magic on people, and they're just unaware of it. They don't believe in it. They're so gaslit and shit. And you're doing these trauma responses on them and like, when I was in third grade, but this was before third grade. This is like first and second grade. They're like, if you like anal stuff, Chris, you're gay, and if you're gay, you're fucking bad. And they're doing that stuff to me while roofie molesting me and shoving things in my ass. I know, like, but that's like, I mean, if you think about it, that's just how evil operates, right? So, but anyway, it's nice to be self-aware of these things and whatnot, and yeah, like they did a bunch of inappropriate things to me, got me to like trip and stumble and everything, but not quite fall. Um, and yeah, but nobody makes it out of the jungle without scars, and I got a few scars. And one of those is a sexual habit that I still struggle with, but it's better than sleeping around with a bunch of people that could have ill intentions towards me or attach things to me, right? Be casting magic on me. Why would I want that? And I don't owe them shit. Like, if I need to commune as Mercury and everything and bring myself to a low vibration, I could do that with myself and these toys that I have, right? I don't need to be with anyone else at all. And I don't owe them anything at all. Except I would like to be, accurate and, when I'm channeling at times, right? Is one thing that I do want. If you could call it an owing, is just being myself, really. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope you folks are having a lovely day and beyond. And peace the fuck out.